Matt Schlapp is president of the American Conservative Union and former political director to George W. Bush. Ashley Parker is a White House correspondent for the Washington Post. I got to start with Ashley because leaking is, from one end, a way for people in the government, whether political appointments or civil service people, to let the public know stuff. I mean, their constituency is the public who wants to know what's going on, and they tell them whether they're doing it properly or not. At least they know who they're serving. They're serving the public, and reporters carry the news. I'm making your case, I think, but that's what you do, I think, for a living, is try to let people in the government tell the country what's really going on.
Sure. Well, there's a long tradition, as you know, in history of whistleblowing, but I would also try to make a distinction between leaks and what has been quite good reporting by the Washington Post and other news organizations to kind of ferret out the truth of what actually is going on in this White House and, for instance, what General Flynn may or may not have discussed with the Russian ambassador. So it is a combination, of course, of people being willing to talk to us, but also reporters being quite dogged in trying to tease out the truth that the White House doesn't necessarily want out there.
Matt, how did we I don't think the public cares about leaks. I know people in government, like presidents. Nixon, he created the plumbers because of leaks.
Reagan hated it. He told, Casey to go investigate the leaks. They hate it.
And by the way, you can't check the email because nobody's a doofus enough to email leaks.
Yes, that's
you do it on the
right.
phone, so on a cell phone somewhere in the bathroom, wherever you go to do it. I don't know.
There might be a couple doofuses that might do that, but I don't know.
Well, what do you make of this fight? Trump is caught. He's caught his national security chief, former national security chief, Mike Flynn, was talking to the Russian ambassador about how things are going to be different or whatever regarding these sanctions. That's maybe not a Logan Act violation, but it's a little bit murky. And now the president gets mad because we know about it. Well, if the president wasn't going to tell us, he wouldn't even tell his vice president. So how can he blame the media for telling the public when he's keeping it secret from everybody?
Yeah, I think it's painful for the president because I actually think he really likes General Flynn. I think they got to be pretty good friends and colleagues. Look, I think he got caught.
He says, I don't trust the guy.
He got caught in a bad position because General Flynn changed his answer, and he made the vice president go out there with the wrong story. And I think eventually that just wasn't lasting, and he had to take steps, and he accepted the resignation. I think it's actually the right thing for him to do. It's amazing how people are criticizing him for doing this. The Donald Trump most people on the left would criticize would be the guy who wouldn't accept the fact that it's time to move on, and he did. He accepted the resignation.
Well, there's still a great story out there, Ashley, and that's to what extent did the president know about these conversations or conversation with the Russians? Because, of course, Trump must be thrilled that he got elected president. Who wouldn't be? And he must understand that one of the reasons he was elected at the last minute was all this leaking about the DNC by the Russians, all the hacking. That was a factor determined by the last administration as worthy of sanctions against Russia. And then to have this guy talking about those sanctions with the Russians, are we to believe Trump knew none of this? Any of it?
Well, I mean, if you look at what's been reported, and it is still sort of unfolding in real time, but after Vice President Pence went out and defended Flynn, that the Department of Justice then went to the White House counsel's office and said, Flynn has not been quite honest with the vice president, and in the process compromised himself, and apparently that was conveyed to the president that evening. It's still a little unclear the full scope of what was conveyed, but so for about 2 weeks, the president has known that these conversations had gone on to at least some extent.
Yeah, and he kept them to himself. How's this Pence thing working out?
I think it's working out great.
Even though the president doesn't tell him. What's going on?
Well, I think we don't know exactly what the president was told, obviously. But look,
we know that Pence, the vice president, didn't know about this thing, though he basically heard it in the papers.
He didn't commit a crime. There was nothing illegal. What he did is he probably dissembled or lied, and the president was having trouble figuring out how does he handle this, and he decided that he gave him the ultimate penalty, kicked him off the team.
Yeah, he sure did, and he called him untrustworthy. That's brutal. That's not good for your resume.
And it's a guy he respects.
And by the way, we're going to see if we have an enemy out there, too, now. Anyway, but you don't think he'll have an enemy?
Who will have an enemy?
Trump will not have an enemy in Mike Flynn.
No, absolutely not.
We'll see how he sweet talks it. Anyway, Ashley Parker, thanks for your reporting and coming on. Matt Schlapp, a good fellow. He sometimes has to serve an unpleasant duty here. Up next,